Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1 for the Newsfirst team. I am Roshan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Prime Minister issues directives to draft laws to safeguard the actions taken out of goodwill by government and semi-government employees. 1 month to reveal the conspiracy behind the April 21st attacks, Archbishop of Colombo writes to the President. Anura Kumara Disanayake reveals an American attempt to engulf Sri Lanka's electricity supply. 10,000 metric tons of banned urea found at the Colombo port, another revelation by the JVP.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has instructed the legal draftsman to prepare draft bills to safeguard the conduct of employees at government and semi-government institutions carried out in good faith.
A discussion was held at Temple Trees on providing relief to those employed at government and semi-government institutions who have been subject to political victimization. According to the Prime Minister's media unit, Secretary to the Prime Minister Gamini Senarath, Chief of Staff Yoshitha Rajapaksa, Secretary to the Ministry of Justice, the legal draftsman and officials from the Attorney General's Department attended the discussion. The Secretary to the Ministry of Justice, MMPK Mayadunna, has spoken of the difficulties faced by public sector employees due to the actions of the government of good governance. According to the Prime Minister's media unit, Prime Minister's Secretary explained the reasons for providing relief to employees at government and semi-government institutions who have been subject to political victimization. Accordingly, the Prime Minister has instructed to appoint a committee including a senior official of the Attorney General's Department to assist in the process of drafting bills and present its recommendations within a month. It was also revealed that a circular has been drafted to determine the limitations that allow officials to perform their duties in good faith beyond the legal framework and to instruct the heads of institutions to provide the necessary provisions. It is scheduled to be presented as a cabinet paper in the future.
In a letter addressed to the President, the National Catholic Committee for Justice, led by the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, has warned, if truth and justice cannot be assured in a satisfactory manner over the investigations into the April 21st attacks, it would be forced to explore alternative means. Now the letter adds, it is the hope of the committee that a credible answer would be provided at least within a month of the appeal.
The letter addressed to the President bears the signatures of the Archbishop of Colombo, 5 bishops and 34 assistant bishops. The letter has been directed to the President, highlighting a litany of factors which have not been unearthed as of yet, including certain recommendations made by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, facts revealed through evidence and revelations made by parliamentarians.
The report of the first committee appointed to probe the attacks, which was led by Vijit Maralguda, had been presented to former President Sirisena expeditiously, but the report was not released to us. The Parliamentary Select Committee appointed to probe the attacks highlighted the negligence of officials. However, legal action was not instituted against anyone implicated during the tenure of the erstwhile government. Recommendations provided by the Presidential Commission report, which concluded probing the matter earlier in January, have not been implemented either. Minister Sarath Weerasekara, the Minister in charge of the police, has paid attention to this matter, claiming around 40 people will be charged in connection to the incident within this month. However, details of who will institute legal action have not been revealed. We cannot declare this investigation complete by simply moving court against figures who are already under arrest and were marginally involved in this conspiracy. There are many dubious areas in this investigation. Certain recommendations on officials have not been implemented as of yet. Justice has not been meted out in that regard. Instead, such figures act as if they have been vindicated from that culpability. It brings great anguish to our citizens when such figures act and express certain opinions. These are the personalities who allowed people to be killed. Hence, these figures are connected to this murderous crime.
මරන්නට අපිව නැති කරන්නට ඉඩ හැරපු කට්ටිය. ඒ නිසා මේ කට්ටිය මේ මිනිමැරුමට සම්බන්ධයි. මේ Taman හොඳටම දැන
An individual who neglected his duties and failed to take suitable action over the matter had made an insulting remark. He is an influential figure in society. He expressed these remarks to the police when it was proposed they be arrested. But today, that individual bears an influential position. Do they not bear a conscience? Are they not responsible for failing to take action knowing of such an attack? We have all these questions. The Indian intelligence had notified and warned our security personnel on the matter. No action was taken. They acted to conceal information. Through that, they implicated themselves to this murder and abetted it. In our eyes, they are all murderers. How are these murderers holding prominent positions in society? Is that justice? Why are attempts being made to cover up evidence without being probed further? The government conceded Sarah Jasmine had not died in Sainda Marudu since her DNA was not found from the site where the blast in Sainda Marudu occurred. Sarah is the wife of Hastoon, who carried out the suicide attack at the Katuapitiya shrine. Later, they exhumed the bodies and set out to determine if Sarah's DNA can be found. This is farcical. Evidence has emerged at the Presidential Commission that it was a police officer who accompanied Sarah Jasmine from Mannar to Batiklo. If so, are police officers connected? What is the link between the attacks and the police? What did officers of the Army Intelligence discuss with Jamil? How was he known?
එතකොට අර හමුදාවේ බුද්ධි අංශේ අය ජමීල් කියන තැනත්තා සමග කරපු ගනුදෙනු මොනවද? එයාව දැනගෙන හිටියේ කොහොමද? ඒ නිසා අපිට මේ මතු පිටින් පේන සාක්ෂි වලට අමතරව
Apart from the information on the surface, several ideas which have emerged raise questions as to whether this attack was masterminded by a broader group than those currently implicated in the attacks. Unless an extensive investigation is conducted on that particular fact, one cannot conclusively end this investigation. One fact remains constant. Governments will come and go, but the truth will be unearthed one day. On that day, a proper judgment of those who attempted to conceal information will be delivered. No one can get away with a crime. Your conscience will speak. Therefore, I would like to request all the leaders of this nation, tap into your conscience and see. These were lives of 269 people. Limbs had been dismembered. A group of conspirators robbed those people of the opportunity to live happily.
ඒ මිනිසුන්ට ගෞරවාන්විතව Tamanගේ ජීවිත ඉදිරියට ගෙන යන්නට ඉඩ දුන්නේ නැහැ. කුමන්ත්‍රණකාරයෝ පිරිසක්. ඒ නිසා මේ කුමන්ත්‍රණයේ සාධාරණය ඉෂ්ට වන තුරු
This struggle will not be abandoned until justice is meted out. We will not accept facts swept under the carpet. All the facts we have brought up must be examined thoroughly and exposed to the nation. Steps must be taken to make available to the public all reports published in connection to the April 21st attacks. This task should be handed over to a truly independent group, free from political influence, and they must be equipped with the necessary powers to probe this matter. If not, justice cannot prevail. We will not be swayed by false narratives.
ගුරු කතා වලින් අපි රැවටෙන්නේ නැති බව අපි ප්‍රකාශ කරන්නට කැමැතියි.
හිටපු නීතිපති දප්පුල දෙලිවේරා මහත්මයා
Former Attorney General Dappula Dilibera openly reveals that there was a grand conspiracy behind these attacks. He made that statement while functioning as the Attorney General. Such a statement made by the AG is indeed a serious one. We cannot believe he would be compelled to make such a statement without sufficient facts. It was made basing all facts in his possession. We believe so. We too believe there is a grand conspiracy behind this. What sort of conspiracy was this? Who are the conspirators? Who are the masterminds behind the conspiracy? Those facts must be exposed before the nation.
කියන දේවල් රටට හෙළි වෙන්නට ඕනේ.
General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna, Sagara Karyavasam, expressed these views regarding the appointment of Basil Rajapaksa to a ministerial position and his subsequent entry into Parliament.
අපි පක්ෂයක් හැටියට
We have great confidence as a party. The country is in a grave situation. Under extraordinary circumstances, we must resort to extraordinary measures. We are of the opinion that Basil Rajapaksa is highly capable. We agreed that at an instance like this, a highly capable person must enter in order to lead the economic development of the country. Because if we don't do this, it is a loss to our country. Already there are signs of a hopeful future for our country. We see that he is already embarking on leading a variety of many ventures. In the coming 2 to 3 months, we can observe the changes he will be making and then come to realize where he will drive this country to.
වෙනස්කම් මොනවද කොයි වගේ තැනකට එතුමා මේ රට ගෙනියනවද කියන එක.
Leader of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, Anurukumara Disanayaka, revealed plans in place to sell off 40% of shares owned by the government at the Kerawalapitiya Yugadanu power plant to a company in the United States.
The cabinet has approved a cabinet paper that will have dangerous consequences to the security and the economy of the country. An agreement has been signed between the Secretary to the Finance Minister, SR Artikala, and a company called New Fortress in the US. This government is attempting to hand over the Kerolapitiya Yugadanavi power plant, the pipeline system, the gas supply, and the storage facilities to an American company. There is no significant market for power in Sri Lanka. Therefore, the one that takes over power in Sri Lanka will take over the country as well. Now, cabinet approval has been sought to hand over 40% of shares of the Kerolapitiya Yugadanavi power plant, which is currently owned by 4 state-owned entities, and the National Treasury to an American company. There is a 300 megawatt LNG power plant constructed near the Kerolapitiya Yugadanavi power plant. That is a part of the Kerolapitiya power plant as well. Altogether, there are 600 megawatts when the two power plants are combined. The government is planning to increase the capacity of these power plants to 1,000 megawatts by 2025. According to the agreement reached with the Ceylon Electricity Board, the power plant will be solely owned by the CEB by 2035. All US citizens of this government, including the finance minister, have taken steps to hand over the Kerolapitiya Yugadanavi power plant to the United States. An international tender has been called for the construction of a pipeline system to supply gas to all power plants across the country. Tenders were called for the construction of a floating storage facility as well. It is against such a backdrop where tenders have been called for such construction projects that this government has decided to hand over the pipeline and the floating storage facility to the United States. This American company will supply the gas needed for the next 5 years. I would like to question Minister Power Dallas Alahappiruma whether he is aware of this, whether he has seen the cabinet paper, or whether he saw it only after he went and sat at the cabinet meeting. Usually an opportunity is given to the subject minister to carry out an inspection in these kinds of matters. As far as I know, Dallas Alahappiruma requested an inspection period earlier on. They carried out an inspection for 24 hours, but the cabinet paper is given approval.
The
Kerolapitiya Yugadanavi power plant, which is an integral part in our country's security and economy, the pipeline system and the floating storage facility are going to be handed over to the Americans like selling off a property in Madamulana to one of your own. There are some in the government faction who vehemently oppose the conduct of the United States. Have they become obedient creatures under the rule of the Rajapaksas? These local Americans have given the supply of power to the Americans on a silver platter. That is why we stressed as to why these US citizens are running for the presidential seat and enter parliament and is sworn in as the Minister of Finance. Their ulterior motive is to sell off our national assets to the United States. I would like to ask the journalists who are present here whether they spoke of such a cabinet paper being approved at any of these cabinet meetings. Did they say in Parliament that they have already signed an agreement in this regard? No. We urge the government to revoke this cabinet paper. Call off this agreement which has been reached between the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance and the Fortress Energy in the United States. That company could have submitted bids for the tender, but instead they carried out underhand deals with the Rajapaksas. This entire project is filled with corruption. If the cabinet approves a cabinet paper that was not subject to inspection, that cabinet is filled with puppets. That is the case anyway. It can clearly be seen that this cabinet is one that dances to the tunes of a family rule. If there is even one cabinet minister who loves this country, please come forward before the people of this country and say whether you are against or in favor of the approval that has been given to this cabinet paper.
Media spokesperson of the Collective of National Organizations, Dr. Vasantha Bandara, exposed details of an alleged move by an American corporation to construct a large-scale oil refinery in the environs of the Trincomalee Harbour. This project bears a total investment of $3 billion. Issuing a communique, he notes, according to the proposal, this project would be conducted on a build, operate and transfer basis. Dr. Vasantha Bandara further iterates the American ambassador in Sri Lanka is overtly influencing the project to be implemented. He adds, although such advances have been made, Subject Minister Uday Gammanpilla has made a policy decision to call for universal tenders on an open tender basis for the project. In conclusion, he adds, against such a backdrop, the government is attempting to either change the policy decisions of the minister, failing which he would be relieved of his duties.
Several protests were held across the island today, condemning the government's response in curtailing the protest held on issues such as the fertilizer issue and the increase of the cost of living. A protest led by opposition leaders Sajith Premadasa and MPs of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya was held this evening at the Kadawatha town.
The government is walking in the dark. They have no plan, no objective, and nor do they have a clear path to go on. As a result of this, the people in the country are facing many issues and are suffering. The government is completely incapable of saving the country from this dire situation.
This government is dreading the people's voices. They are dreading protests. The government is completely incapable of solving the people's issues and realizing the people's expectations. This government has failed. The majority of the people are expecting so many solutions for their issues, but the government has failed to provide them to the people. The government is hiding behind the fear of COVID-19 and are exercising state oppression and state suppression. It is utterly shameful how the government is considering the people of this country as terrorists. This government took away the fundamental rights of the people. I would like to state that we are prepared to fight on the streets alongside the people until their problems are solved.
Another protest was held today, organised by the Frontline Socialist Party, demanding solutions for the fertilizer issue at the Valimata town.
We want answers to these issues that are destroying the future of our farmers. That is what we are demanding today. As women, we will not be humbled in the face of all these grievances. We will fight.
A protest organised by the Janata Vimukti Peramuna was held in the Digana town in Kandy today. They arrived to the town in a vehicle parade. A protest organised by the Janata Vimukti Peramuna was held at the Deyandara town today.
ගෝවින්ගේ කුඹුරු වලට අවශ්‍ය පෝර ටික ලබා දෙන්න. දැන් මේ බණ්ඩි වෙලා ගෝවින්ට පෝර ගහන්න නැහැ, සල්ලි වලටත් නැහැ. යූරියා මිටිය මෙහෙ විකුණන 4500ට.
පොහොර නැති නිසා ජනතාව අසරණ වෙලා තියෙනවා. අපි දන්නවා අපේ ප්‍රදේශ ගත්තොත් තේ ගොවියා, කුරුඳු ගොවියා, ඒ වගේම ගොවිතැන් කරන වී ගොවියා ඉතාමත්ම අසරණ තත්ත්වයට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා.
While the farmers across the country are disgruntled over the lack of fertilizer, and while many civil and political movements are highlighting this issue, the JVP made revelations today regarding a banned stock of fertilizer being brought to the Colombo port.
The president from time to time announced that the importation of chemical fertilizer is banned. This was the highlight of his address to the nation recently. We have received information that a stock of 10,000 tons of urea has been imported to the Colombo port on the 9th of July. Certain companies that are known to the president have been given the approval to import chemical fertilizer. The country questions as to who provided the approval to import chemical fertilizer in this manner and as to whether the stance of the president regarding the importation of chemical fertilizer has changed. If that is not the case, the statement issued by the Presidential Secretariat will become false. How did a ship carrying 10,000 tons of urea come into the country? These cannot sneak in. The government has the responsibility to provide an explanation.
යූරියා මෙට්‍රික් ටන් 10000ක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා කියන වරායට ඊයේ මේ ඒක ඔබතුමා දැනුවත්ද?
නෑ කිසිම අප්‍රේල් 27
After the 28th of April, we have not given approval to import any fertilizer. There were around 2,000 metric tons of fertilizer that were imported before the 27th. That was a stock of mixed fertilizer. After the gazette, no one is allowed to import fertilizer.
Amidst allegations of illegal chemical fertilizer importations, farmers point out that a stock of undu has been imported when the local undu harvest was released to the market. Due to this issue, farmers of Anuradhapura, Mahavilachya, Tantirimale and Nochayagama have been severely affected.
We carry out our cultivation activities after taking mortgages. We take the undu harvest to our homes. We sell it for 450 rupees. It costs 350 rupees to cultivate these. We are unable to sell a kilo of undu for even 275 rupees. Previously, the President said that he would give a permanent price of 550 rupees for undu. We are helpless. At this rate, no one will know what undu is. What the government said is not what's happening at the end.
At a time when farmers are unable to sell the harvest of the Maha season that is in storage, there is only a short time for the harvest of the Yala season to be reaped. According to our correspondent, close to 200,000 kilograms of undu harvest are stored in the Nochayagama Divisional Secretariat alone. I have here undu worth 90 to 100 million. I have obtained this on loans. I am trying my best to sell these. However, I am unable to do so like usual. The government must purchase this undu for at least 600 to 650 rupees as a solution to this issue. Information regarding the large importation of undu from India was leaked from the customs. Shouldn't immediate action be taken regarding the allegations levelled by these businessmen and farmers? Bellboy's got you covered. Download Bellboy today to get all your household appliance fixing and repairs done. Now available on Android and iOS.
The magical sounds of Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra. This year's Summer Night Concert, 18th of July 2021, 5 p.m. onwards, exclusively on TV1.
Another 41 COVID-19 deaths were reported today. The Government Information Department said the Director General of Health Services confirmed that the deaths had occurred yesterday, the 12th of July. 882 COVID-19 cases have been recorded today. Another 1,328 COVID-19 patients have recovered today.
Japan has stated that they will deliver 1.45 million AstraZeneca vaccines to the country in the coming weeks. The Japanese embassy in Colombo stated steps will be taken to deliver this stock of vaccines, which is manufactured in Japan. State Minister Professor Channa Jayasumana stated 1.5 million doses of the Moderna vaccines will be delivered under the COVAX facility by next Friday. Meanwhile, the chief scientist of the WHO, Soumya Swaminathan, has warned that mixing and comparing manufacturers' vaccine is a dangerous tendency.
So it's a little bit of a dangerous trend here where people are in a data-free, evidence-free zone as far as a mix and match. There is limited data on mix and match. It will be a chaotic situation in countries if citizens start deciding when and who they should be taking a second or a third or a fourth dose.
The Event Management Association issued comprehensive guidelines for the hosting of COVID-safe events during a media briefing held today.
The president of the Event Management Association appealed to the government to allow the industry to operate under health guidelines.
So our industry basically has been closed or shut down since April last year because the official guidelines that were released right throughout said no events. Events were not permitted. We have been a very responsible industry. We've done this booklet for, to give those in our industry. And we've gone into a lot of details in putting all these guidelines together. After the first wave, the government opened all industries, including cinemas, weddings, they had political campaigns, and so on. Every industry was open except the corporate event industry. We are a little concerned and confused as to why, when a sector like ours, a low-risk sector, why are we given 50 packs? That the 50 packs doesn't help us. It doesn't serve any purpose for our industry. And if the government decides to continue this, if we have a fourth wave, and if they decide to continue, our industry will not be able to survive at all.
The string of protests staged by teachers' trade unions, warning that they will refrain from their duties, was seen across the country today as well. Now, the trade union action was launched last morning against taking members of their union to be quarantined, even after bail was granted to them after the suspects were produced before court for engaging in a protest showing their opposition against the Kothalawala Defence University Bill.
Teachers' trade unions arrived at the European Union office in Colombo today to hand over an epistle.
මේක ඊටාම අනීතික මානව හිමිකම් උල්ලංඝන ක්‍රියාවලියක් ආණ්ඩුව විසින් කරපු.
This is an illegal act and the government has violated human rights by doing this. Today we took steps to hand over an epistle to the High Commissioner of the UNHRC. This government is trying to suppress trade union leaders and student activists in the guise of quarantine regulations. We handed over this epistle explaining the situation.
දහන ක්‍රියාකාරීන් දිගින් දිගටම මර්ධනය කරන්න කටයුතු කරනවා. මේ තත්ත්වය පිළිබඳ කරුණු දක්වලා තමයි අපි මේ සංදේශය අද ඉදිරිපත් කරේ.
Several teachers' trade unions spoke to media regarding this issue today.
The General Secretary of the Ceylon Teachers Union was arrested last week. He has not been subjected to a PCR test as of yet. We will not let the authorities to fully privatize education in Sri Lanka. We urge all the relevant parties to serve justice to us in this matter. That has not been done as of yet. We have no other option to resort to.
අපිට තියෙන සාධාරණත්වයක ඉටු වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒ නමුත් අපිට සාධාරණත්වයක් තාමත් ලැබිලා නැහැ. ඒකෙන් අපිට වෙන මාර්ගයක් නැහැ.
Immediately release our trade union leaders and university students. Revoke the Kothalawala bill immediately. The teachers will not let go of this struggle until our demands are met. If they are trying to suppress trade union leaders in this manner, we have answers for that. We will continue this struggle until our requests are fulfilled. Revoke the Kothalawala bill immediately. Do not attempt to solve the real problems in this country by opting to suppression.
If certain factions are trying to manipulate the teachers who are respected like deities in the society, in my personal view, they are nothing more than just scoundrels. They are saying that these are being done by scoundrels. Ministers are lying on the way the authorities used force to apprehend us and on how they are detaining us here. We would like to know the real scoundrels of our society now. Is it us or the people who lie to the country? How can you detain us in these centres? Until today, we didn't see any PHI or an MOH come into this Air Force camp in Mullativ to monitor our quarantine. We are urging our society and especially the world community to intervene and stop this grave violation of human rights. For the past 15 months, teachers of this country have continued online teaching. Teachers had to work tirelessly to educate 4.3 million students in the country. These teachers had to spend their own money on data and use their personal mobile accessories for this purpose. And today, they are calling these teachers and principals scoundrels. People of this country know who the real scoundrels are. They should immediately apologize about this comment made to the teachers community of this country.
Issuing a press release, the opposition leader pointed out that the Kothalawala Defence University Bill is a deadly blow to the country's free education. Through the press release, the opposition leader has iterated, although the strengthening of the Sir John Kothalawala Defence University is a national priority to provide higher education in order to promote and protect national security, he strongly condemns the attempts to deviate from the established framework, adverse effects caused to the free education system and the possibility of the establishment of other higher education institutions outside the control of the University Grants Commission. The opposition leader has stressed this process conducted by the government will affect the quality and standard of Sri Lanka's higher education and completely strip the autonomy enjoyed by the University Grants Commission, plunging our free education into a serious crisis.
During a media briefing held today, Pakistan High Commissioner to Sri Lanka expressed Pakistan's policy regarding the much disputed Jammu and Kashmir conflict.
And my reference is to the challenges that have emanated by changing the status of the illegally occupied Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir. Well, there is a principal stand that we have adopted. We continue to stand with that, and that is to address the issue in accordance with the UN resolutions, which are very clear. Stated resolution, India has brought in unilateral changes in the region, violating its own constitution and violating the United Nations Security Council resolutions. Pakistan's position is always principled one. Pakistan's position will continue to remain the same, and that is to stand with the people of the occupied Jammu and Kashmir, assisting them politically and diplomatically, ensuring that the issue is addressed according to the United Nations Security Council resolutions.
He also expressed views regarding China's influence over Sri Lanka and Pakistan.
Pakistan-China relationship or Sri Lanka-China relationship, or the engagements that we are undertaking with the Chinese government, I think a lot depends on how our leadership handles the long-term relationship between our countries and the Chinese government. At the same time, we also have to keep in mind that there are no free lunches. So therefore, there has to be an accommodation of the interests of the country that is at the giving end. Now, though that accommodation would not mean for the leadership to compromise on the fundamentals of your sovereignty and integrity.
Renowned Sri Lankan singer, choral conductor and juror ROHAN de LANEROLLE has been appointed into the first ever International Choral Conductors Federation as a founding member, becoming the first South Asian to be appointed into the federation.
The International Choral Conductors Federation has representation from other major countries including Italy, Sweden, Canada, Malaysia, Singapore, Argentina, Slovenia, the USA and the UK.
This is all about taking choral music forward. Sri Lanka has had a very, very rich culture of choral music over the years. And with this new appointment that I have got, I believe that I can use all of my expertise and also work with everyone else in this country to take choral music forward to a different level.
ROHAN is a celebrated juror who has judged many choral competitions in Europe and Asia. He is also the only Sri Lankan who is appointed the artistic director to the Frisilia Mixed Choir in Manado, Indonesia, and the Ao Naga Choir in New Delhi, India, besides being the joint artistic director of National Unity Orchestra in Sri Lanka, in addition to his position of choir director of Visakha Vidyalaya. ROHAN, who is also a past pupil of St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia, is part of the dynamic singing duo, the de LANEROLLE brothers, who are regarded as entertainers who have pioneered staging sit-down dinner concerts for over 10 years in Sri Lanka.
A religious ceremony was held to invoke blessings on His Holiness Pope Francis at the Agrashavaka Mahavihara at Colombo today.
During Pope Francis' visit to Sri Lanka in the year 2015, His Holiness visited the Agrashavaka Mahavihara in Colombo. The Mahasangha also chanted the Ratana Sutra to invoke blessings upon His Holiness. The religious ceremony was organized by the chairman of the Mahabodhi Association, chief incumbent to Japan, Venerable Banagala Upatisatero.
And that's a wrap of this edition of Primetime News. For the Newsfirst team, I am Azra San with our sign language interpreter for tonight, Brian D. Cruz. Take very good care and good night.